Don't go yet. Go now.
All right, welcome to meeting number 348 of the St. Charles Sherlock Holmes Society, the Harpooners of the Sea Unicorn. Welcome to St. Charles at Pio's Italian Restaurant and Lounge. So we're getting started. We're observing the annual, the Alkali Plainsman referred to it as the Feast of the Blue Carbuncle. So seems different, if you will. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. Of course, we always start with the toast to the Queen. Since we're not downstairs this time, we'll pretend we're standing as we should be. And everybody pretend to be standing for the toast to the Queen that will be given by Miss Emmeline. I got it right, Miss Emmeline Foster.
To Her Imperial Majesty Victoria, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and of her other realms and territories. Queen, Empress of India, Defender of the Faith, long may she reign.
God save the Queen. Here, here. All right. So once again, welcome to our meeting. I better get my shades on so that I can see what I'm doing. Our next meeting will be Friday the 21st of January of next year, of all things. Woohoo! And that'll be at 6:51 p.m. or 18:51 as we usually say, here again at Pio's. Our story will be The Adventure of the Red Circle. We still need a presenter for that, and I'll go into that in a few moments also. In fact, now is the time to bring that up. We are in dire need of some presentations as we get through the rest of His Last Vow. We need one for next month, for 18th December. In fact, we're also hoping to have some semblance of a Red Circle party, since we're in an Italian restaurant now. And hopefully we can do something other than just having everybody making sure they have pepperoni pizza with those little red circles on it.
Pizza's a red circle.
Yeah, only if you get red cheese.
Red sauce.
If you don't get Alfredo.
Or barbecue.
Or barbecue, yeah. 15th of March will be The Dying Detective. 16th of August is His Last Vow. We do still need presentations for those. And we are accepting presentations over the internet, from the internet moorlands, if you will. Just go to harpooners.wordpress.com/edicts, EDICTS, in case you're like me and you can't spell. That is our edicts and expectations page, where you can get more information on what we're looking for and how to submit.
I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille.
January's meeting was 30 years ago the Harpooners started.
This is true, yes. Well, actually, it was 30 years ago, but it'll be starting our 31st year. We've been celebrating HSU 30 all year. So,
Yeah, this is the end of our 30th.
This is the end of the last meeting of the 30th year. Wow, and what did I do to this place? Okay, the Parallel Case of St. Louis will have their next meeting on Saturday, 12th January, at the Schlafly branch of the St. Louis Public Library. They will be observing the Adventure of the Musgrave Ritual, one of Holmes' first adventures, if you go by the Baring-Gould chronology. You can get updates on their upcoming events and some other notes at parallelcasestle.wixsite.com. I don't have an update on the Great Alkali Plainsmen of Greater Kansas City or for their next meeting or anything like that at this time, but we'll try to keep you posted. They were good to mention one of our next meetings at the time, about last month. So I brought in a flyer from them for that. Let's see. The occupants of the empty house, which is the Sherlock Holmes Society of Southern Illinois, will have their next meeting on Friday, the 4th of January next year at Alonji's Restaurant in DuQuoin, Illinois, around 12:30 p.m. They will be observing The Adventure of the Speckled Band. And let's see, any other further thoughts? One thing, let's see, of course, we're getting ready for the Holmes birthday for this year, and whereas a lot of people will be braving the cold, frigid temperatures of New York to go celebrate the birthday of Felix Morley, we will be getting ready to show the world our proofs and some commentaries for Holmes' birthday being on April the 5th. And we'll be getting geared up for a party for that day as well. You can check out some of our commentary and our proofs at SHB Advent for Sherlock Holmes Birthday Advent. shbadvent.wordpress.com. That'll get you started. You can even get to a link for one of the first papers we did. Well, not one of the first. It was actually kind of a reprint. Some studies from Bill Cochran and from Vic Holly about how Holmes' birthday is more rightly to be believed in April as opposed to January. Usually a little warmer as well. Let's see, I've already mentioned our Red Circle party we're going to try and have. Also, I mentioned it with these folks earlier before we started the meeting that there's a Susie Hapner, who's the widow.
Harpooner?
Yeah, I keep wanting to do that. It looks like Harpooner. But Susie Hapner is the widow of the late Barry Hapner of the Baker Street Irregulars. He was described as a Sherlockian stalwart in St. Louis and a fixture at local Scion meetings for decades. Anyway, he passed away about a year ago, and she is now selling some various Sherlockian items that he had collected for decades. Some of those items include porcelain figurines, pewter chess set with canonical characters, posters, and other art and collectibles. These items are on display at St. Louis Cigars, 14147 Olive Boulevard in Chesterfield. And you can also contact her at hapnersh@att.net. I'll read that again. That's hapnersh, one word, at att.net if you want to contact her about the stuff that she's selling from the late Mr. Hapner. Is there any other old business I need to be bringing up that I can't think of at the moment? Okay, like a moron, I did not get everybody assigned to everything either. There was something else I did forget. Let's see.
We won't hold it against you.
Yeah, I know. What else is new? Would you be okay doing the toast to Holmes, please?
I can do that.
Cool, thank you.
Ready to do that now?
Yes, it's now time
Oh
for
gosh, thanks.
Lots of warning.
Oh, you
with
think?
that.
Yeah, we're on to that point now. Do I need to make up an announcement while you...
No, I'm thinking.
Okay.
I might suggest while we're killing,
Okay.
while she's, you may want to come up with maybe a group night to go see the new Holmes and Watson comedy.
Might be an idea, yeah.
Or just at least post out there, hey, how about Sunday afternoon we go watch such and such
Yeah,
and
right.
such
That
and
would be
such.
fun.
I'd probably be doing it in the evening myself.
Yeah, I mean, just anytime.
I especially wouldn't be too bad about doing it. Let's put it this way: there's a place called The Great Escape over at Highway 40, and I think it's called Caledonia, 900 Caledonia, out there in the Winghaven area. And if it's not Friday or Saturday or a holiday like Christmas, tickets are $5.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, see.
They're a
Yeah.
little bit more expensive to do
Yeah.
3D, but if we just see it as
That's
regular.
the theater there next to the new soccer field, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, they were there first, and then the soccer field built up around
now
it.
Llewellyn's is out there. And
Yeah, there's a
everything.
Llewellyn's
we
there,
could
too.
do the movie and go to Llewellyn's or something.
Or Cyber. Cyber is out there now?
Cybergs?
Oh no, Cyber is in Cave Springs.
Yeah, but yeah, the
Mid
Llewellyn's.
Rivers,
is pretty
whatever.
nice
I don't
there.
know.
But yeah, just throw it out there. Maybe people could join you.
It's an idea. Yeah. I mean, I missed the Sherlock gnomes myself, but I haven't heard a whole lot of hubbub
It
about
didn't
it.
get very good reviews.
Okay. All right.
Actually, I just ordered it because it was pretty cheap at Amazon just to have it.
right.
But it didn't get very good
Right,
reviews.
that's what I'm going to do too.
Yeah.
I'm not. It might be one of those things I buy and I might not possibly watch it. I'll just put it away so I can say I got it.
But yeah, I mean, post it one night. We'd go out there, meet you, and watch the movie.
That would even be in our neck of the woods.
Almost, yeah.
It's a nice theater.
Yeah. Oh, yes,
That'd be
I
a fun
agree.
thing. That'd be a fun thing.
Yep. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Two Holmes, even a jewel stuck in a goose's crop couldn't delay him or sway him from finding out the truth.
God save the Queen. All right. And as we get through some more of the agenda here, are you ready to give your paper?
Sure.
All righty. Actually, maybe I ought to do the summary first. So as you probably guessed, we're doing the Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. Here's some of the pageant drawings, if you can see that fairly well, or you can look on there. And to
He
basically,
stole mine. So we can't look.
okay, so the summary goes, while going home, Peterson, the commissionaire, is witness to a fight between a man and thugs. I got this from the from the Arthur Conan Doyle Encyclopedia.com, by the way. In the fight, the man loses his hat and a goose. At the sight of the uniform of Peterson, everyone flees, leaving the hat and goose on the ground. Holmes advises him to eat the goose and give him the hat, from which he deduces that it belongs to a Mr. Henry Baker, and determines some interesting points about the man from said hat. While cooking the goose, Peterson's wife discovers a priceless gem in the crop of the bird. It is the very stone stolen from the Countess of Moorcore a few days ago at the Cosmopolitan Hotel. John Horner, a plumber who was working at the hotel, was accused of the theft and arrested on the testimony of James Ryder, the chief of staff. Holmes publishes an ad in the newspapers to find Mr. Henry Baker and attempts to determine how a priceless gem stolen from the Cosmopolitan Hotel made its way from 221B Baker Street inside of a goose. And the summary and the Sydney pageant illustrations come from www.arthur-conan-doyle.com/index. It's from the Arthur Conan Doyle Encyclopedia. Go look it up for yourself.
Thank you.
And now, the paper on Blue.
Well, they weren't really thugs. They were actually vegetarians working for PETA. Just to get everybody kind of in the mood and the atmospheric mood of the stories, I want to first pass around a picture of Covent Garden, where a lot of the story takes place. At about the time of 1895, the picture was taken. This picture is more of the vegetable stalls and not the.
It doesn't look much like a garden.
Yeah, not the stalls where Breckenridge would have had it, but kind of the same type of image.
That was the Covent Garden Market.
Yep. Another image I would like to pass around is Henry Baker is described to be wearing a Scotch bonnet in the story before he gets his goose and hat back. So you have no idea what a Scotch bonnet looks like. That's what a Scotch
They're really
bonnet
hot,
looks
though.
like. What's that?
Scotch bonnets. We grew some. They're
Did
really
you,
hot.
yeah, that's true. They are peppers also. Yep, they are peppers.
You don't want to eat one by itself.
Yep. Another image I'll pass around. One of the deductions Holmes makes on Mr. Baker's hat, since we're still talking about Mr. Baker's
See,
hat,
that's
is
why
what
they're
a
called Scotch
hat secure looked like. This is what a hat secure looks like. This particular one was patented in 1895.
Yep.
So if you have no, basically it's a bobby pin with a piece of elastic.
Convent Gardens.
So
What they do with the elastic? Put it on the back of
To
their
this,
head?
to
or-
this day,
well, the
ladies
elastic was attached to the bobby
sometimes
pin, and it
have
just kind of
those when
kept
they
the
go
hat
to
from
like
blowing
Okay.
off.
Churchill Downs or something like that, and they have their big
Makes
box.
sense.
Now, I'm going to ask you to share these. Two of you can share, but please do not turn the page until I ask you to turn the page. So you two can share that, and you can share that with yourself, and you two can share that.
Oh, hello,
Okay, so
myself.
tell me something one more time. Say, is it Covent Garden or
Covent Garden.
Covent.
Covent Garden.
what's that a long O? Covent.
So stay on that front page till I will actually give you a number to when to turn the page.
It reminds me of what we did to the one of our API on Facebook, where instead of wearing he was wearing a hat, wearing one of these stocking
A
caps.
Santa hat?
Yeah, a Santa hat, while he's sitting there in his dressing gown in that famous Sydney pageant pose.
Well, this is obviously from the Blue Carbuncle where they're
Yes.
examining the. But anyway, I'll get to that in just a minute.
All right.
So I'll go ahead and start. Without a doubt, Blue Carbuncle is one of my favorite stories from the canon of Sherlock Holmes. It often switches places with the Hound of the Baskerville for the #1 spot for me. Unlike the Hound, however, which I love for the environment and the rural setting, I think what I love most about Blue is the more jovial mood Sherlock Holmes is throughout most of the tale. The trouble with Blue being one of my favorites is that I've done an awful lot of monographs on this story, as has many others. There have been papers that have almost made it indisputable about the location of the Alpha Inn. And if you've been to London or any of the trips or done any reading, it's obviously the Museum Tavern in London is the Alpha Inn. Papers on the colors of the carbuncles have been done. Carbuncles are not usually blue, they're usually red. I did a paper last year for my blog on how jocular Holmes seems throughout Blue and how many almost joking remarks he makes, which is unusual for Holmes in the canon. Several years ago, I did a piece on the markets of London at the time of Blue takes place. The market gardens, Covent Gardens, and a few others, each one of the markets kind of had a specific thing it dealt with. They didn't all deal with meat or didn't all have a variety of meat or vegetables. So usually a market delved in a particular area for that particular time and place. I once did a paper on the different types of bars found in pubs, the snug or private bar and the public bar. For my blog, I wrote a piece on the use of dinner as opposed to supper, which kind of those two words are kind of interchangeable now, but at different times in our cultural history, dinner meant something different than supper. I explored the meaning of Peterson's profession as a commissionaire. I once informed the public that the bowler hat, which is usually pictured Watson wearing, was the most common hat worn in the American West during the age of cowboys. We think of cowboy hats, the majority of people in small towns and rural areas wore bowlers. On the same note, I wrote a piece on the history of bowler hat at one time, as well as doing another on the purpose of the hat secure, which I passed around a picture of. I tried doing research on the guttering candle, thinking it was a specific type of candle at one time, but actually a guttering candle is just a candle that has melted down so far that the flame is now flickering in the wax instead of the wax running off. But the wax on the hat, the bowler hat, is described as being a guttering candle, and it was just a candle that was really dripping. I've written about what seems, I've written about the fact that it seems that there are more men fading away in the canon than are women. In this tale, we have one that does faint away and actually one that almost faints away. So, which is, seems kind of weird. These manly men in the canon are often fainting away. I once explored the route taken by Holmes and Watson. Quote, as we swung through the doctor's quarters, Wimpole Street, Harley Street, and so through Wigmore Street into Oxford Street. In a quarter of an hour, we were at Bloomsbury in the Alp Inn, or again, across Holborn, down into Endell Street, and so through the zigzag of slums to Covent Garden, to see if these descriptions actually were accurate and the mileage were verifiable, and they were pretty accurate. At various times, I've done papers on cabs and four-wheelers. So as you can see, I've almost exhausted research possibilities, at least in my mind, within the canon of Blue Carbuncle. Yet, I still want to enjoy and explore this tale each year, as it is our only Christmas story of Sherlock Holmes. I like the feeling of the two old friends getting together once again in comfortable digs at 221B Baker Street. I like believing there's a comforting fire going in the hearth, that snow is whirling outside the window. So over the last couple of years, I've had to find a different approach to, well, explore this story. Since it is Christmas time, a time of joy and hope, and since, at least to me, Holmes seems to be at his most jocular during Blue, I've been exploring the humor I find in this tale, even if it is just my perception of humor. So before I fill you with belly laughs in the aisles and with stuff from my imagination, I first want to point out to you the lightheartedness of some of Holmes's remarks in this tale. So these are directly from the canon. Was his career at the peak? Was he just happy that Watson was coming over to visit? Although I am sure Holmes is sincere in his glad tidings and seeing his old friend, I feel that there is more to this that we will never know, why Holmes was in such good mood. But throughout this case, Holmes is simply in a great mood and in good humor. Almost every paragraph of Holmes's dialogue holds some little moment of lightheartedness. For example, this is a quote. For answer, Holmes claps the hat on his head, Henry Baker's hat, and it came right down over his forehead and settled on the bridge of his nose. It is a question of cubic capacity, said he. A man with so large a brain must have something in it. I cannot believe Watson did not find this image hilarious. Another quote, "When I see you, my dear Watson, with a week's accumulation of dust upon your hat, and when your wife allows you to go out in such a state, I shall fear that you also have been unfortunate enough to lose your wife's affection." That's kind of said in a joking manner, you know, to his good friend. We often don't see Holmes explain his deductions and observations in such a lighthearted way. Then after Holmes has duped Breckenridge out of the information he needs, a few lines later, Holmes stopped under a lamppost, laughed in a hearty, noiseless fashion which was peculiar to him. Again, we don't see him, Holmes, usually in such a good mood.
We don't see his mirth. So.
Exactly, good way to put it. It seems during this tale, much of Holmes's humor is targeted at deceased birds. Quote, "What of it then? Has it returned to life and flapped out through the kitchen window?" And Peterson comes in with a blue carbuncle before he shows it to Holmes. Another line about birds. "A most unimpeachable Christmas goose." Another quote, "To fulfill the ultimate destiny of a goose." All humorous ways of describing this poor dead bird. Again, Peter would be outraged. "If you will have the goodness to touch the bell, Doctor, we will begin our investigation, in which also a bird is the chief feature." Again, a joke at the bird's expense.
Right.
"Very glad to see you. I dine at 7. There is a woodcock, I believe. By the way, in view of recent occurrences, perhaps I ought to ask Mrs. Hudson to examine its crop." You know, another humorous way to look at in this story. With the exceptions of James Ryder, Holmes deals with everyone in this story almost whimsically. Chance has put in our way the most singular and whimsical problem, Holmes says. If you read, or I should say, between the lines, there is so much more humor to explore in this tale. Sidney Paget has been the inspiration for much of the humor I found and continue returning to each year. While I have yet to explore all the images created by Blue, several have provided me with an opportunity to twist the meaning. Your first page, your cover page right there. Well, I thought of this idea was as original to me. It appears that somebody else has already done this. I did, however, touch up the artwork a little bit, make the hat look a little bit more realistic. So that is Holmes exploring Santa Claus's hat. If you go to my blog, there's a great story about that one of my blog followers has written and I post every year on my blog. And then after this, it sort of goes downhill. Peterson provided much of the material, so if you'll turn to the second page, this is the first of Peterson trio that I have done. In this one, Peterson has no idea what he has found. So he comes to Holmes with I believe it's a Cadbury Christmas egg, and you can read the caption for yourself.
For the last time, Peterson, it is not the blue carbuncle, it is a Cadbury cream egg.
So
The
use
bite
that.
out of it, too.
That's a tradition in England, the Cadbury eggs. So, and if you want to turn to the next page, the second one suggests Peterson thinks he is entitled more of the 1,000-pound reward than what he gets. If somebody wants to read it.
What? You said the reward would be 1,000 pounds. This here is only 2 pounds 6.
And the 1,000 pounds was what Holmes suggested it would be. And turn one more page. In this one, it appears that all the legwork Peterson has done over the years, he's a little bit disappointed in his Christmas gift.
15 years running all over London for you blokes, and this is all I get.
A little tiny box. After Peterson, James Ryder provides some of the fun. While Ryder in the next picture, while Ryder seems pretty clueless throughout, I thought it would go with the theme for most of his illustrations. This first one is, of course, is at Baker Street.
He really has no idea how to play hide and seek, does he, Holmes?
Okay, and then the next one is sort of along the same lines. You could actually substitute any food,
I like that
any
one.
food you don't like for his comments there.
Oh, please, sir, don't make me eat any more goose liver pate. I hope it's that and not pate.
Yeah, me too. I think I looked it up, but I don't know for sure. While Breckenridge is not one of my favorite canonical characters, he does give me a moment of humor in this edited illustration. Number 7, your next picture.
Listen,
Yes.
no, and for the last time, I do not have any more copies of a Charlie Brown Christmas.
And although it's not real clear on there, the illustrations I did on paint in there are pretty accurate as far as the colorings and the placements of the Charlie Brown Christmas cover.
And the rear of it, apparently.
And the last one on the last page is I have this image of James Horner, while important to this case, is never really seen within the tale. Yet of all involved, he probably has the most at stake in the outcome. Number 8 has me imagining Horner going to Holmes to thank him at some point, and while there is asked to look at a plumbing issue. I firmly believe that this is where the canonical phrase three-pipe problem comes from.
It appears to be a three-pipe problem, Mr. Holmes.
And as you can see, Baker Street
Now,
is flooded with
once
water.
it's to your knees, it always becomes three-pipe.
One image that is not illustrated by Sidney Paget is Holmes and Watson at the Alpha Inn, and I always get a humorous chuckle from this. This, to me, is one of the most underexplored parts of the canon. Who cannot imagine, at least this time of year, Holmes and Watson on a cold winter night near Christmas, stopping in a nice pub and enjoying each other's company over a pint of ale? While Holmes would not be interested in the other partygoers at the bar, the sounds of Christmas cheer would still make its way into the private bar. Watson would probably want to go and mix with the crowd, while Holmes would find much of his observational skills on the crowds to his appeal. The humor I find in this unillustrated image is of Watson going mad and not being able to stay and enjoy the whole pint. Because in the story, he orders a beer, he gets his information, and they leave.
And they leave.
Holmes wouldn't care. Watson would be disappointed, not standing there and finishing that beer.
What? I'm not going to get to finish this? We ordered it.
Come
I
on,
got
Holmes,
it.
stand still for just a second. Jeremy Brett first showed me that Holmes could have a sense of humor. I didn't notice a lot of the subtle humor in the Holmes stories until you actually saw Jeremy Brett perform them. Some of his subtle expressions commuted Holmes' dry wit. Humor is not something that is portrayed in the canon. It is usually left to the pastiche writers or to film and television. Nigel Bruce was the Costello to Rathbone's Abbott. Michael Caine, while called Holmes, was Costello to Ben Kingsley's Watson or Abbott. Well, Robert Downey Jr. was Costello to, obviously, Robert Downey Jr.'s Abbott, because he was the only humor in that. The humor in Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock comes as a dry, sarcastic humor, perhaps more canonical than the others, with the exception of maybe Brett. Let's face it, while reading the canon may make us feel good, we don't read the canon for laughs.
Yep.
There you go.
Very good. Very good. All right.
Tried to keep it light for Christmas.
Yes.
Yeah, but there's some, my favorite line along that is in The Mandarin Stone, where Count Negreno-Sylvius turns to Holmes and says, "You won't die in your bed, Holmes." He says, "I rather think that your exit will be more vertical than horizontal, too."
And before we get into too much more discussion about Blue Carbuncle, would you be willing to do a toast to Watson, please?
Yes, I will. To John H. Watson, without Watson, we would never rode in a hansom, nor traveled through the streets of London, nor ever seen or heard of Holmes' wonderful exploits.
God save the Queen.
He was a great little dog.
Besides the fact that you did it last month, that's why I was trying to avoid you doing it this time. So, okay. So, I got one thought I came up with on this. I mean, other times I've read it, I didn't notice that James Ryder actually went out of his way to make sure that John Horner was at the scene and actually lied on him. He gave false testimony.
Right.
Gave false testimony, all that stuff. And, you know, Holmes is talking about how they should be merciful. He was like, we let him go, and, if we arrest him now, he'll be a jailbird for life. We let him go, he'll never do this again. And it's like, what, my thought was, why shouldn't he swing for this? I mean, take, for instance, I hate to bring the extreme example of this, but Emmett Till, if you remember that name, he was a young African-American man, age 14 in the South. He'd been accused by a white woman of catcalling at her or something. And, it might have, the wheels of justice might have gone through eventually, but he ended up being lynched over it. And decades later, she actually admitted she lied about the whole thing. So he died for no reason. And John Horner has gone through a lot of stuff going back into the system, all because he wanted to get that blue rock. Thoughts on this? Why shouldn't he swing? And pass me my
I think
thing
if
there.
Holmes thought it would have gone
the
that far,
clipboard.
I think if Holmes would have thought it would have gone that far, I think he wouldn't have had any trouble turning in Ryder.
I think it goes to what John pointed out. For some reason, Holmes throughout this entire episode of the Carbuncle is in a better mood, and he's more. I think he was be more prone to let the Ryder go than he had have been in some of the other stories where there was more involved. But he was in a good mood. He took everything lightly, and he had sort of a, for a better way to say it, the Christmas spirit there. And so he was.
It would have been interesting to see how Holmes would explain the return of the blue carbuncle
True.
to Scotland Yard and to the Countess wouldn't have cared.
Yeah, she
But
was.
it would have been curious to see how Holmes would explain. Holmes, how did you end up with a blue carbuncle?
Right. Well, it could be something similar to how he explained how he couldn't go investigating who the two people were that ran away from the house of Milverton when he was shot.
Right.
Right, and he didn't care to go after him too,
Exactly.
which bugged him. Lestrade was totally out of character for Holmes to decide that he just simply didn't care who broke into Milverton's place.
I think it's just another case of Holmes wanting to thumb his nose at Scotland Yard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's more than that, because how did we know that Horner hadn't, or whatever he did, not Horner, the other
Ryder.
guy, hadn't already done this before?
Yeah.
Has he
Yeah.
looked into his back,
The writer?
Ryder,
His writer?
and done it
Well, it was all
before?
about love.
Because it seemed like it was awfully easy for him to do. You know, when
I think
did
he was just the dumb dupe to the maid.
Yep,
You know?
right.
I think the maid just set him up.
Could be.
Us guys, all when we were younger, can remember back. Most of us can remember how a lady made a fool out of us at one time or other.
We do not do that.
I think it was the season and thumbing the nose at
Yeah,
Scotland
right.
Yard and
Right.
not wanting to be bothered with going out of Baker Street on a cold day.
Yeah.
Might
Well,
not
he said
be
at
able
the
to
end, he
do
says, I
this.
don't have to do their work for them. So they couldn't figure it. And he said that lots of times through it. You know?
I did just, I don't normally read pastiches lately. I haven't found one that I've really enjoyed, but I did just read one over the Christmas holiday on the 12 days, basically the 12 stories, short pastiches on Holmes, all by one author. And they were actually very well written. So look up Sherlock Holmes Christmas Tales, 12 Days of Sherlock Holmes or something. It was
Yeah,
very,
okay.
very good pastiche.
Thought when you were thinking about Covent Garden, it was originally by the Abbey, and it was Convent Garden, and it was and there's a typical.
That's what I wondered.
Okay, and there's a typical aberration of the word, just like how All Hallows Eve became Halloween. It's a
Right.
typical Cockney thing where they slam it together.
Yeah,
Well, you don't know if it's Covent with a long O or it's Covent, and that would make more sense if it was Covent Garden, because that would be Convent. And they
yeah,
just
I think if you
drop
read
off
it,
the end.
if you read it quickly, you do want to go Convent Garden, but it's Covent
Right.
Garden.
And see who's playing out there that
Yeah.
night. Yeah.
Right.
We
Well,
actually-
it originally was a market, and now today Covent Garden has still got the Covent Garden market area, but a whole section of it now is shops, Drury Lane theaters. There's a number of things there, but originally it was at one time
So
it was
it's
just a
like-
marketplace.
St.
It's almost
Louis,
like
where
a
they
mall
have the-
now. It's much more
Yeah,
like
right.
a mall.
What do you call it? The place in St. Louis that has all the, you can buy all the fresh produce.
Oh, Soulard.
Soulard.
Yeah, it would have been like
It would
Soulard.
have been
Yeah,
like
I looked
Soulard.
up there. It says
Much
it by
bigger,
1650
but just like Soulard.
Well,
By
I've never been there.
1654, it was a small open-air fruit and vegetable market. You know,
Yeah, it's gigantic.
yeah.
There's that picture.
You're right.
Well, any
And
other
it's in the
thoughts?
West End too, so
Blue car-
there's
the blue
theater,
carbuncle.
there's theater, cinema, and whatever.
My Mustang had a blue carbuncle.
So is that where everyone in London bought everything? I mean, So if you were in the wealthy end, you'd have your maids go down there and buy.
Yeah, and there would have been.
You have to remember, I've never been there, so I don't know.
Some markets would have dealt more with fish. Some would have dealt more with produce. Some would have
Right.
dealt more with meat. So yeah, you wouldn't have necessarily gone to Covent Garden for everything. You might have had to go around to different markets.
They were talking about something like that on Facebook. They were talking about the old grocery stores that are in St. Charles. You know, and some of them I have never heard of.
Well, they used to have greengrocers.
And they were talking about little mom and pop places here and there throughout St. Charles. But
Oh yeah, there near Lindenwood College, there would have been at least 6 markets within a square mile.
I think one of the last ones in the area that I can even think of is Menino's Market. I think it is out there in Cottleville,
yeah.
Yeah.
out where Highway N and Highway N come together
Right.
at that turn.
But when I
That's
was
what it's
go-
called now. It didn't used to be.
Yeah, that's not what it was.
Right.
My cousin owned it originally.
What, Menino's?
Yeah, the rest of the building.
Okay.
They rent little stores in.
Okay.
When
'Cause-
we lived in St. Charles, 94 was Little Tulane Road,
Yeah.
going out to the
Well,
far
there
away.
was Hedges and Hopper. They're on First Capitol. And then
Right.
almost across the street from there was Rankin's. And then on Kings Highway,
Somebody else said a Bettendorf's? I didn't know.
Bettendorf was on near Drosty and West Clay.
Okay. 'Cause I
And
didn't
then
know
down
that
near
Bettendorf's was yours.
Lindenwood, where the Hawthorne Market is now,
Right.
there would have been another little market up there. There was an AG market, an IGA market. Hawthorne used to be IGA. But yeah, they were just all over town.
So we-
Real tiny. I mean, very tiny building.
Yeah.
Hedges and Hopper actually would have probably been one of the bigger ones.
Well, I remember growing up in the Castle Point area in North County. I remember a Schnucks being there at Monarch and Chambers, which I understand before that I think was a Piggly Wiggly. I heard. I never saw it as such. But across, yeah, well, that's what my mom told me. I seem to remember. The catty corner across from that was a place that I remember going up while I was in the area. It's probably still there. The Meat Market, Meat Mart, or something like that. And I don't remember going in many times myself, probably because we just go to Schnucks or wherever else we were going to go pick up whatever. So,
Well, they were saying, well, the old one in Mark Twain Plaza, you started out as Food Town.
Is what?
It started out as Food Town.
Yeah, I
and then it
remember the
went to
Schnucks.
And then it went to Schnucks.
But
When we first moved out there.
yeah, that wouldn't have been till the early 70s that Mark Twain Plaza came
Yeah.
in.
Late
I mean, there
60s,
used to
because
be
that's
a-
when we moved out there.
You know where the was it Goodwill is on 5th Street here.
Uh-huh.
And that was the Kroger's. But before that, it was Brown.
That's
But it was Brown Shoe Company was all in that area there.
Oh, really?
A giant
and
shoe
Kroger's the one.
factory.
Kroger's the one that still with their stores still has usually a butcher in the back, and it's set up different than the typical grocery store where the butcher's there to and you can see things and they cut meat for you on the spot.
Yeah, we have that.
Warrenton's one
I
of the few
Warrenton.
Kroger's around.
Speaking of that too, like Covent Garden was a place. Smithfield Market was the big place in London. Was the huge meat markets.
Yep.
It was a really big area where that was a meat market. So that's the way London was laid out at the time. There was different people go to different markets, probably on different days because it was a ways to walk from one to the other.
I will send you an electronic copy of
cool,
this.
thank you. Gonna send the pictures also.
I can.
Yeah.
So I
You'll,
can try to-
you'll have to plug them in that order, but or however
I'll
you
do
want.
my best.
Yeah. I didn't print the pictures.
I usually manage to figure out something on that with when I put it online. Okay, thank you.
You know, another thing about going back to John's thing on the can and the humor in it, if you listen to some of the stories on recorded stories when someone will do it, some of them are really great. Some of the British actors that read the stories are really good. And I have a recording of the Mazarin Stone, and when the fellow reads it, a bunch of the exchanges between Negretto Silvius and Holmes are really funny because when he speaks it he uses emphasis on it when Holmes is making fun of the Count and making fun of his slap-sided friend who was downstairs and everything. And when you hear it, you hear the inflection of somebody's voice. There's more humor in it than when you just read it yourself.
Yeah.
Well, then we're reading. Most of us are, if we're in the United States, we're reading it with our point of view,
Right.
and we don't have some of the, because from what I've seen, England has
Right.
more drier humor
Yeah.
than we have,
They
and
have
so you
drier
read
humor.
it with their humor in it and what they understand, and you read it from our point of view, and we don't always catch their little things like
It's
that.
drier,
I mean,
but
like-
sometimes it's pretty pointed too.
Like I said, Brett kind of he did it in such a way that occasionally you'd see a twinkle in his eye when he said something to
Right,
Watson or
right.
somebody, and that kind of like, oh yeah, I never thought of that perspective before.
Right.
Yeah. I liked Ian Richardson's Hound when he asked Watson to examine the cane, and Watson said what he thought, and at the end, Richardson says, you know, that he got everything wrong, but the way he said it, you can see Richardson had a twinkle in his smile, and he was laughing about it, but he was laughing about it in a good-hearted way, and you could tell. And then he went back through with Watson, explained that CH.
That was a good hound.
Yeah,
That was a good
you know,
hound.
that was he did a good job as
I did not like the Peter Cushing hound, I will
no,
admit.
There,
that's something to be desired.
there's a new series coming out, Irregulars. I think Jonathan Pryce is the actor. He did a movie about them where the Baker Street Irregulars have a bigger part in the story, but apparently it's going to be a series or something
Yeah.
called The Irregulars. I'm not sure if it's Netflix or
I don't know
it might
what
be
it is.
Netflix. Brad Keepoffer gave it really bad reviews, but the original movie that I saw with Jonathan Pryce as
Price
Holmes
is
was a good movie.
Price is really
Yeah.
good. I like Price.
Yeah, check that. There was a book series called The Irregulars, so it might be following that.
I have Brit.
They started eating more fiber and stuff, right?
Yeah, the grape nuts.
Yeah, right. I got BritBox, which I love. In order to use BritBox, I have to cast it to my television off of my iPad.
Yeah.
Pad. But BritBox has some things, and one of the most amazing things is Bean. It does a detective series in it. It's really good. And you don't never think of him as being able to be serious, but he does
Right.
a serious role in it, and it has all the other goes way back and has many of the best British series from day one.
Is there another Johnny English movie out now too, or just recently came
I
out?
think there is one that recently came out where he plays a spy.
Yeah. Well, there's been two
Gets a
Johnny English
recurring.
ones.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
right.
think there's a
Recurring.
third
There's a
one coming
recurring.
out. Those were hilarious. Those were hilarious.
I found Bean the other day for $10. I found all the original Bean. Barnes and Noble, 60% off of all the British television right now.
Oh, yeah?
At Barnes and Noble. If you buy anything at 60% off, so if it's a $100 thing, you pay $40.
Ooh, find a Doctor Who.
They
Whoops,
had
sorry.
Who. They had a bunch of Who. They had a bunch of Who. Who? Was there an owl here?
Rain on me. Oh, wrong Who. Sorry.
Well, that's all I have.
Okay.
That was good stuff,
right.
though. I like that.
Well, there's nothing else. It is the season again, so since it's the season, we really ought to continue the singing. So,
Oh, no.
yes, I think you two are going to have to
Are we going
share.
to do it over and over? And
Well, we've only got 12 lines here, so yeah. As a matter of fact, this is
Too much
What
of a
is-
good thing is wonderful.
exactly. Well, I mean, I've been posting this every day on Facebook and on our Twitter feed with pictures to go with them. So check us out.
Can we just do the last stanza?
Yeah, really. I like that.
Oh, let's vote.
I'm with you.
I think it's still a benevolent dictatorship. So here we go. The Sherlockian 12 Days of Christmas. Here we go. On the first day of Christmas, my Holmes friend gave to me some footprints round the pear tree. On the second day of Christmas, my Holmes friend gave to me 2 boxing gloves and some footprints round the pear tree. On the third day of Christmas, my Holmes friend gave to me 3 Garrett Debs, 2 boxing gloves, and some footprints round the pear tree. On the fourth day of Christmas, my children gave to me 4 coded words, 3 Garrett Debs, 2 boxing gloves, and some footprints round the pear tree.
You're not singing.
She's the camera monkey. On the 5th day of Christmas, my home's friend gave to me 5 orange pips, 4 coded words, 3 Garrett Debs, 2 boxing gloves, and some footprints round the pear tree. On the 6th day of Christmas, my home friend gave to me 6 geese decropping, 5 orange pips, 4 coded words, 3 Garrett Debs, 2 boxing gloves, and some footprints round the pear tree. On the 7th day of Christmas, my home friend gave to me 7 subs of swimming, 6 geese decropping, 5 orange pips, 4 coded words, 3 Garrett Debs, 2 boxing gloves, and some footprints round the pear tree.
Somebody signed this song?
On the 8th day of Christmas, my home friend gave to me 8 bad guys bilking, 7 subs of swimming, 6 geese decropping, 5 orange pips, 4 coded words, 3 Garrett Debs, 2 boxing gloves, and some footprints round the pear tree. On the 9th day of Christmas, my home friend gave to me 9 ladies waiting, 8 bad guys bilking, 7 swans of swimming, 6 geese decropping, 5 orange pips, 4 coded words, 3 Garrett Debs, 2 boxing gloves, and some footprints round the pear tree. On the 10th day of Christmas, my home friend gave to me 10 and north by 10, 9 ladies waiting, 8 bad guys bilking, 7 subs of swimming, 6 geese decropping, 5 orange pips, 4 coded words, 3 Garrett Debs, 2 boxing gloves, and some footprints round the pear tree. On the 11th day of Christmas, my home friend gave to me 11 pipes of puffing, 10 and north by 10, 9 ladies waiting, 8 bad guys bilking, 7 subs of swimming, 6 geese decropping, 5 orange pips, 4 coded words, 3 Garrett Debs, 2 boxing gloves, and some footprints round the pear tree. And now the moment you've been waiting for, the end. On the 12th day of Christmas, my home's friend gave to me 12 clients coming, 11 pipes of puffing, 10 and north by 10, 9 ladies waiting, 8 bad guys bilking, 7 subs of swimming, 6 geese decropping, 5 orange pips, 4 coded words, 3 Garrett Debs, 2 boxing gloves, and some footprints round the pear tree. Okay. Well, now we got through that ordeal.
No.
And now, for the last thing, we always close with 221B. And as I promised some people on Facebook, we were going to try and do this set to music, so get to hear the musical version for everybody. So, open your hymn books to number 220B, 221B. Don't forget our next meeting next month on the 18th. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yes, 18th, where we'll be looking at the red circle. Okay, so 221B. Words by Vincent Sterrett and music.
December?
January 18th. Next meeting.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, let's see if I can get the music going
You and my
here.
mom need a room together at the home.
I know.
Dwell together, still 2 men of note who never lived and so can never die. How very near they seem, yet how remote. That age before the world went all awry. But still the game's afoot for those with ears attuned to catch the distant view. Halloo. England is England, yet for all our fears, only those things the heart believes are true. A yellow fox swirls past the window pane as night descends. descends upon this fabled street. A lonely hansom splashes in the rain. The ghostly gas lamps fail at 20 feet. Here, though the world explode, these two survive. And it is always 1895. All right.
Is that a ballad or a dirge?
Yes.
Well, it
Sure
might have
seems
been
a
a
lot
ballad,
longer now
but
when
we're
you sing
singing
it
it
than
like
you
a dirge.
All right.
Funeral march.
Here, let me have your camera.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And whether it's right now, which I don't think we had any comments coming in or anybody saying, here we are, or ex post facto.
You can get copies of this production at Acorn Media.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you next month, hopefully.